derby, but if we don't mention it now, we'll keep kind of skirting around it throughout all the rest of the discussion. So let's talk about the penalty decision that led to Manchester United's equaliser. It comes through...
the offside.
Penalty decision, offside decision that led to the equaliser. So it comes through to Bruno Fernandes. Looks like Marcus Rashford may have played the ball. In the end, he hasn't touched it, and so he is not deemed to be offside, even though he was in an offside position. You will be aware of this. You will have seen this multiple times across the weekend. What are your thoughts?
That's just so confusing, because the reason why Marcus Rashford's interfering with that, because that ball is going through for Marcus Rashford. You look at Akanji, and Akanji's actually trying to play him offside. And the only reason why he's doing that is because Marcus Rashford is in a position where he's trying to interfere with what he's doing there.
So interfering is not in the wording of the law, but if the first one...
He has to react to
the player in an offside position is only penalised for becoming involved in active play by either preventing an opponent from playing or being able to play the ball by clearly obstructing that opponent's line of vision. I mean, you could argue that with Akanji, that he was between Akanji and the ball.
Yeah, but he ran across Akanji.
And making an obvious action which clearly impacts the ability of an opponent to play the ball, which, again, you could argue that he did with Akanji.
Yes.
So, yes, I mean, the kind of... The other way of putting that is to interfere with play. But even by the wording of the law, has Marcus Rashford acted in... Has he covered both those criteria, actually?
Yeah, for me. Yeah. In the way that the ball's going through to Marcus Rashford, man.
It's played for him.
Played for him. Akanji's tried to keep him offside.
Really close to the ball, isn't
Exactly. And so remember as well, Akanji slows up. He actually slows up to get him offside. So it's confusing for defenders, because they're still thinking, I've got to play him offside, but hang on a minute, if he doesn't touch it and someone else who's coming from over there it's too confusing.
Yeah,
it's too confusing.
And then it takes the defender's ability to try and play a player offside away from him as well, and take one of the tools out of his toolbox. So I think we've cleared that up, certainly in terms of opinion, if not in terms of what the thought process was behind giving the decision that way. And when we said about the North London derby, there was a real gap between Arsenal and Tottenham in terms of their levels of play in that. This one was much closer. So did this decision have a material impact on the outcome of the game? Manchester United, of course, gone on to win it.
Well, yeah, because it was because obviously Man City, you know, they needed to get something out of the game. They're trying to chase down Arsenal, of course. And they will feel a bit hard done by with that decision. I would have felt disappointed with it. But saying that, you know, Man United and the way they played and the structure that they're playing with now and the system, they're a different side. You know what I mean? And what Man United showed is that if you're not going to play like we know City can play, with that possession and incisive possession and then making those chances, you cut it back and then someone's touched. If you're not going to play like that and you get it wrong, you're capable of losing games. And I thought that's what happened the other day. Man United had their number. They weren't passing through the lines as well. They didn't have a lot of movement. You know, they didn't make enough chances for Erling Haaland, who was making some good runs, but just wasn't found. They're just not quite where they need to be. So I feel that the noise that's coming from Pep, whether they're complaining about that goal or not, is kind of deflecting from the fact that they're not quite where they want to be. And it's very frustrating for them.
Not quite where they want to be, Manchester City, but it was much closer in terms of performance between City and United. And so decisions like that can have a real material impact. Whereas if that had happened in the North London derby, gone for Spurs, for example, you would think that Arsenal would be able to come... But what I mean is, if you look at the overall patterns of play, whereas it was much closer in that game, so it has more of an impact. With Manchester City, all the positives, when everything's going well, can be turned into negatives when things aren't going well for Manchester City. So now the concern is Erling Haaland, who is quite clearly a fantastic player and an incredible goal scorer, now hindering Manchester City? Because Pep Guardiola decided in this one, I'm going to answer those critics by, I mean, for a large part of the game, playing him as a false nine. It was very odd. It was almost like it was well, look, he can do this too. And he didn't.
Well, for the last 3 seasons in the Premier League, the winners have played with a false nine. Haven't played with an out-and-out number 9, Liverpool and Manchester City, but you can't take nothing away from his goals. But I think it's the positional change has happened, not just in that one game, throughout the whole season for City, but it's everyone else. You know, we spoke about cogs. You know, I think City have been so used to playing in a really formulated way. The cogs have been working well, and he's come in and been brilliant. but it's actually affected everything else. I think the stats are down for a lot of the other players around him. But you wouldn't not take him.
Yeah.
It's just time, isn't it? And again, I think, you know, even for Kevin De Bruyne, after the World Cup, he hasn't looked himself. I think defensively, when I watched him against United, I thought, why are you 3 for 3 at times? You don't defend like this. Or when they played 3 at back the other day, like, there's a lot of things that are changing, not just the number 9 position. So yeah, I think all of us can't put our finger on it, but maybe we're speaking, the expectations from us for Manchester City maybe is like so high because they've been so perfect for so long, and is that attainable?
So dominant.
They had the season where they dropped off quite a bit in. So it's the season which it was paused for lockdown, but Liverpool had already pretty much won it by the time that came around in March, and they had a real drop off that season, Manchester City. But other than that, since Pep Guardiola has come in, it's been 90 plus.
Yeah, and the first season
points.
You
know as well, Jules. I was more. The question I would ask is at some stage are City going to have to change the way they're playing so it's going to enable him to carry on doing what he's doing, or are you going to honestly try and change the way that Erling Haaland plays, which is a phenomenal goal scorer who plays on the shoulder, but you're looking at Man City players who are not still recognising that there's space behind for him to exploit. And they're still passing the ball around in situations and in that third of the pitch, just past the halfway line, where he starts to make his moves, and they're not looking for him. So I think that at some stage, that's the question, is that are they going to have to play differently instead of this possession football? They need to get it to a certain place, and then they need to start spinning it in.
You know, our mate Jill Scott.
Yes.
She actually spoke to me about the number 9, and she said at like City, when they've got an out-and-out number 9, they are only able, they have to stay central at all times, and they can only come to feet and set. They don't do channel runs. He has to always stay in those spaces. He doesn't, and that's weird because, as you mentioned, Haaland's strengths are at times spinning. Yeah. You're seen as a high line, and why have we not played him? But I don't think their City's formula, what Jill was saying, was they stay central and they only come to feet, and then the rest of the time you get in the box and you get the tap-ins. Yeah. So don't get involved in the build-up.
But the thing is, they talk about a low-touch striker. He had 16 touches, scored like a hat-trick against Forest. Yeah. You know, same like 35 touches, scored a hat-trick. He's not about the linking-up play, but talking about City and the way they play, all of the players, when you look at it, have got like 71% of touches of the ball. But
how would you feel if you're a striker and you come into a Manchester City side, you get 21 goals by mid-January, and there's been a month break for the World Cup in the middle of that as well, and then people say, do you think City are better off without him?
Exactly.
You'd be furious.
It's crazy.
I don't think the question should be asked, though. They're not better without him. It's just... Right now, it's just not working out. Against Chelsea, they had a tough game. Pep got it wrong, changed at half-time. He had a tough game, although he had a couple of chances, difficult ones in the first half. But he was so good the first 4 months. There's no
so is it maybe just the case that any player comes with things that they give to the team and things that they take from the team is too strong a word, but it's all about that balance and on-balance.
And United clearly is
credit rather than debit.
They defended well, but what we're talking about it because obviously City lost. But Erling Haaland is still doing what he does. He's still making those runs aggressively with people in the midfield with time on the ball, and they're not getting it to him. So we're talking about if they start to say, right, remember, he's doing this in the game. We're playing around like this, but remember he's doing... Then they will be able to put him in, and all of a sudden, if Erling Haaland's doing that and missing chances, you could say, well, something's not working. They're not passing it to him, but he's making runs into space. But what he does.
We saw De Bruyne doing it a bit in the first half of the season. I don't know why. I agree with you. I don't know why on Saturday they just ignored him. They seemed to ignore him completely, which was weird. But we've seen the link between De Bruyne against West Ham. I remember away from home, great through ball, and then he finished it one-on-one. So they've done it before. So there's no reason. So maybe they're just not physically fully fit, or they're just not working completely well.
I thought Man United were very organised in the way they...
So well. Out of possession, United were perfect.
And this goes down to Eric Ten Hag, doesn't it? He's absolutely got his plan in place and firing at Manchester United.
Yeah, he has. I thought Luke Shaw done well. You know, for somebody that you... Obviously, Harry Maguire sitting on the bench with Luke Shaw left-back playing at centre-half must be disappointed, but Luke Shaw done well, and that pace does help. You know, Casemiro with Eriksen next to him. You know, and then you've got the pace of Rashford, who's in unbelievable form. Bruno seems to be, again, ignited. You can see the passion, everything coming back. And there's structure to what they're doing.
And for this game, you bring in Fred.
Yes.
And you make, it's very simple. Eriksen plays higher up and Mark Rodri.
Yes.
Fred and Casemiro on Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne. And then once you've blocked the City midfield, this is it. Bam. It's over. Even if at times they would have had time on the ball to play Haaland through, that midfield was perfect.
Yes.
And then they're frustrated. Even when they go 1-0 up, then you get a bit lucky, of course. But there are chances at 0-0 United. They could have scored in the first half.
Yes.
And now they're only a point behind Manchester City, 9 points off Arsenal. So if City are title contenders at 8 points behind, and Manchester United title contenders at 9 points behind.
Well, it's momentum, isn't it? Yeah. They've got momentum, and it's looking positive, and they're on the right direction. But you can't rule them out.
Well, the thing is, Kels, you got to Man United now, because nobody is speaking about them as title contenders. Man United now, all they've got to do is say, right, we're just going to win our games. They've got to beat Arsenal next week if they've got serious ambitions to try and really put themselves in for a charge. They've got to beat them, and then they've got to hope that Arsenal slip up. They've got to hope that City continue to play like they're playing. And then it's up to them to take advantage. Then all of a sudden, the pressure turns towards Man United. But, yes, they are. They are involved, Man United.
Newcastle level as well, but they've played a game more.
Yeah, and the goal difference, though. There's plus 20 between City and Arsenal, who are plus 28, and United only plus 8. So that's an extra point, really. Right now, it might change. It's a big swing, though, but right now it's an extra point for
United are involved, I think.
Yeah, it's all feeling right for Manchester United. And we were talking about the importance of players developing under coaches. And that seems to have happened for Marcus Rashford as well. Where he sort of was a bright prospect, and then it seemed to dip him a little bit. Now he looks like he's very much back in the groove.
Yeah, but when he got involved, he was with Van Gaal. And Van Gaal, you would have thought, would have coached him. He was young, and he was bringing him through, and he was doing that, scoring goals because he was such a precocious talent and everything was happening. But then after Van Gaal, with the managers that he had no coaching, he had injuries, he's playing loads of games, especially under Solskjaer. It was the most, he has injuries and form, of course, with nobody actually coaching him and how you're playing. And when you can see now, he looks like somebody who is well coached and knows exactly what he's doing, and now he's thriving, his confidence is thriving. And remember, last season is the first time he had a proper rest and a break, and now he's back. And it's natural that he should be doing this now. People giving him the stick that were giving him, Kels, it was unfair because we're a young player developing, so many managers not being coached, with everything what was going on in his life, what he was trying to do. Everybody's saying, oh, it's because that's why. It's not why. You know what I mean? He just had a bad bit of form, and he had the injuries, and now he's got a coach who's coaching him. Bam.
He's human, isn't he? I think we spoke about it on here before. You look at any industry in life, if you have a career that's going to be 15 or 20 years or 15, to be like that the whole time is unrealistic. And like Ray said, with all those circumstances, for a young player, again, sometimes I think it's we put the expectations on, especially young people, so high.
Yes. Like Emma Raducanu. Don't let me started on that.
Well, that's for our tennis podcast when we go off and do that.
But Kaz is absolutely right. The amount of pressure we put on young people, it's unfair.
But I also wonder if there's a sort of natural tendency with a young player who clearly has a natural talent for coaches to go, well, they know their job, and almost to kind of not do the basics with them because they think, well, you've already got that. And so that as they get to a certain level, and suddenly they've not been taught the grounding to fall back on when they get to a certain... I'm speculating wildly here and extrapolating from other industries.
No, it's a good
for example, Benny McCarthy, the former striker, come in and work with Ten Hag, just with the strikers, just with the forwards. It's more than just the strikers. I think Marcus Rashford would welcome that. He would welcome any people saying, like, look, let's watch the video analysis of that movement. Maybe you could have run that way, or maybe that. Look at that first touch. Look at this, look at that. And I think this is great for anybody. I would love Wrighty to be a... I think...
But it'd be too good for the players, though. It'd be bad for their confidence.
Honestly, it's like... No, but the thing is you're exactly right, Julian. Simply because when you look at the way Marcus Rashford is going through now, the only problem he had with not scoring early, like you mentioned, Man United should have scored, was just that he just needed to slow himself down, because then the poor little touch, and then bam, the goalie saves it. But like you can see that he's thinking about it more, the way he's bending the runs, the way he's laying the ball off, the way he's running with the ball. All these things are things that somebody's saying, no, in this situation, no, run at him. You know what I mean? Like we saw him do with Everton. If this situation, take him on. You know the player. And so that's what Marcus is doing now, and that's what he's getting, and now we're seeing the best of him.
They play Palace on Wednesday. If they win that and beat Arsenal at the weekend, the gap's only a point.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying but in seasons like this, where everybody looks like they have some frailties, Arsenal seem to have got theirs out the way at the early stage of the season, but where it looks as though sides they can all take points off each other.
The mere fact that you can say it like that and put it out like that for people to see, Man United will know that, and they'll be keeping that under wraps because they're saying, let's just stay in the shadows. Let everybody talk about Arsenal. Let them talk about Haaland and talk about City. Can they get it right? Meanwhile, yes, we beat Palace. Then bang, we're right amongst it, and then. You know what I mean? They can start. Then we could see how the pressure, how they deal with the pressure, how the players react to it is exactly the same thing what's going to be happening to Arsenal. So it's very exciting now, Kels, but I do hope that scenario doesn't play out.
It is very exciting, but the whole of the Premier League feels like it's just simmering at the moment, ready to come to a boil, and sometimes not necessarily in a good way. Certainly there's pressure on a lot of managers at the bottom of the table, and two of